Adobe Lightroom and Photoshop have become the industry standard for photo editing. This tutorial is designed for people who are new to Lightroom and want to learn it from the ground up, or for people who have learned Lightroom but sort of learned it piece by piece and want to fill in a few gaps. Now before we get started, it's important to point out that there are two versions of Lightroom. There's Lightroom Classic, which is what we're seeing on the screen right now, and then there's Lightroom or Lightroom Mobile. Lightroom Classic has more features, so if you're using a desktop, I highly recommend using Lightroom Classic. In fact, I don't even have the other version of Lightroom on my computer. If you're not sure if you're in Lightroom or Lightroom Classic, all you need to do is navigate down to the application, and if it's Lightroom Classic, it will say LRC, and if it's just straight Lightroom or Lightroom Mobile, it will say LR. With that being said, my name's Mike Wardynski. I'm a full-time landscape and wildlife photographer. You can visit my website at naturemike.com for some great how-to articles, in-field workshops, and private post-processing lessons. And if you'd like to learn how to import your photos and properly set up your Lightroom catalog before you get started, I highly recommend watching the video in the upper right-hand side of the screen, and that's going to help you get your Lightroom set up the correct way so you don't lose photos in the future. In Lightroom Classic, there are 7 different modules. You'll mostly be in the library or develop module though, and this tutorial is going to focus on the library module. This is where all the sorting, organizing, renaming, all of that stuff happens here in the library. The Lightroom interface is comprised of 4 different panels. Every panel has an arrow, and if you click that arrow, that panel will disappear. If you click the arrow again, the panel comes back. This can be useful for folks who are working on a laptop and don't have a lot of screen real estate. Sometimes it can be helpful to collapse these. That way you can get a bigger view of your image. The top panel consists of just our modules and then our nameplate, and that's it. So if you need a little more space, you can go ahead and close this one. On the bottom, we have our film strip. This is just another way to navigate through our photos. We can also navigate through them in the grid view, which we're seeing on the screen right now. I'll get into that a little bit later. I'd like to point out the panels in Lightroom that are on the left and the right hand side of the screen. These are all expandable and collapsible. Now, if I control click next to the name of any panel, that would be a right click on a PC, I get a couple of options. I can turn off specific panels if I don't use them, such as publish services, and then I can control click once more, and I can change this to solo mode. And what that will do is it will only allow one panel to be open at a time. So right now folders is open, so the other panels are closed. If I click on catalog, folders closes and catalog opens. Now this setting only takes effect for the left-hand panel. If I wanted to turn this on for the right-hand side, I would have to come over here and actually control click again and turn on solo mode. But I'm gonna leave this as is for now, and actually I'm gonna turn it off on the left side too. I do really like this feature in the develop module, which I'll be covering in the next video. Now the left side of the screen is probably the most important panel within the library module. Up top we have our navigator. This is going to allow us to zoom into a particular part of an image. So if I just scroll down here and pick this image and I want to zoom in on this wolf's eye, I just click here, click once more, and now I've got a close-up of the eye, and you can see it says it's loading, and it can sometimes take a couple of seconds for the full resolution to load. If I want to move around in the photo, I can simply click in the navigator and move the box around just by clicking and dragging with the mouse. If I want to zoom back out, I can either go to fit, or the keyboard shortcut is spacebar, and that will toggle between the last zoom level and fit. Typically, when you zoom into a photo, you want to be at about 100%. This will allow you to see the full resolution of the photo. And then to zoom back out, I'm going to hit spacebar. And if we come over to the right, we have other zoom options available to us. But for right now, I'm just going to leave this alone. Each tab within the library is expandable or collapsible, and there's no limit to how many of these you can open at a time. So next we have our catalog. This is essentially an overview of the Lightroom catalog. All photos within the catalog are listed right here. Then we have all synced photos. This is for if you're trying to sync photos with Lightroom Mobile, they'll show up right here. I don't do that, so you can see mine is set to 0. Next we have Quick Collection. It's sort of a temporary place where you can store photos. Maybe you want to share some photos with a friend, or you have your favorites from a particular shoot. You can temporarily put them into this collection. And to do that, all you would do is navigate to the photo you want to add, click this little circle, And you can see I went from 289 photos to 290 photos within that quick collection. If I want to remove it, I'll just click that circle again. And we're back to 289. The keyboard shortcut for adding and removing photos to a quick collection is B. And lastly, we have previous import. This can be nice in case you imported your photos but weren't paying attention to where those photos were going. And so if that happens, you can come here and that'll show all of your photos. Next, we have folders. So this is the organization. This is like the Finder or the Explorer. This shows you the folder structure within Lightroom. It's really important never to name or move photos or folders outside of Lightroom. All of your naming and moving should happen here within the Folders tab. If I pull up my Finder window and navigate to my hard drive, I can find my parent folder, LR Photos 23 Drive. And if you look over here, it says LR Photos 2023 Drive. So this 2023 folder is an exact mirror of what's happening in my Finder. And if I'll just navigate to my 2023 folder here, and so these are all the same folders. And it's really important, again, never to move or rename any folder or image outside of Lightroom. Moving along, our next tab is the Collections tab. This can be really useful. This is a really great way to organize photos by different locations or subjects, and these photos can be in different folders. They don't have to be in the same folder, and that's what makes them really powerful. They're sort of like a virtual collection. I'm not going to go too deeply into collections right now because I have a really great video about how to organize your Lightroom catalog, and I'll go ahead and leave that in the description of this video. And lastly, we have publish services, which would be if you wanted to publish directly to a stock site or Flickr from Lightroom. I don't do that, and most people don't, and so I'll go ahead and leave that for another video. Moving down, the most important part, this is how we import and export photos. You can also go to File, Import Photos and Videos, or File, Export as well, but these buttons are conveniently placed right here. Moving along to the right side of the screen, we have histogram, and the histogram represents the brightness in the photo. The left is black, the right side is white, and then the middle is gray. So right now we have this photo selected. I'm gonna open it up in the loop view, which is this icon right here. And that allows us to see a bigger view of that photo. If I wanted to go back to the grid, I would just click this icon. And so back to the loop. So we can see we have a big spike on the left towards the darks and a pretty big spike on the right towards the whites. And if we look at this photo, that makes sense. We have this really dark moose, which is this information right here, and then this really bright background, which is going to be this information over here. Underneath the histogram, we have our ISO. It was shot at 1600 ISO at 600 millimeters f4 at 1/640th of a second. Underneath the histogram, we have Quick Develop. I don't use the Quick Develop very often. It's essentially a way to apply presets to a photo very quickly. So right here, you can see it says Save Presets. We can click on this, and this is all of the presets that are listed in Lightroom and plus any that I would have installed. So if I want to come down here, I can go down to 2021 presets, desaturated landscape, or new black and white, and I click here, and it automatically applies those settings to the photo. Now, presets typically only look good on certain types of photos, and that is the types of photos that they were built off initially. So in this case, this doesn't look super great. It's a little crunchy in my opinion, so I'm going to undo that. Command Z on a Mac or Edit Undo. Underneath Save Preset, we have white balance, so I can choose auto or a custom one. Since this photo is black and white, it's not the greatest to demonstrate white balance, so I'm going to navigate over to folder and just choose one of these wolf images. Maybe this guy. And now when I go to white balance, I can do auto. And when I click auto, the software automatically tries to figure out the correct white balance. Coming down, I can do daylight, which is gonna make it a little more blue, or I can do cloudy or shade, which is gonna make it more on the yellow side. Now, I kind of liked it with a slight blue cast, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go back to as shot, and I think that looks pretty good for now. And then we have tonal control. We can hit auto, and Lightroom will automatically apply some basic edits for us, which may or may not look good. If you hit auto and you don't like it, you can always do reset all, and that resets the photo back to where it was. You can also use these little buttons to adjust the contrast and shadows. Now, while you can edit a photo this way, I don't recommend it. The develop module is much better suited for editing photos, so I don't recommend coming over here unless you have a really good reason to. Next, we have keywording, and you can see here I already have 2 keywords in here, Wyoming, Yellowstone. I could add another simply by typing wolf. I could use a color description, gray, outdoors, national park, and so on and so forth. Now, these keywords can be useful if you're uploading to a stock site or if you have a website that allows people to search through keywords, because these keywords will come through with the metadata. If you're not doing one of those 2 options, you probably don't need to use the keywords too much. Underneath keywording, we have keyword suggestions. So these are suggestions that Lightroom thinks might fit with this photo, like wildlife, winter, white, and the rest of them don't make much sense, so I'm going to go ahead and close that. Underneath keyword suggestions, we have keyword set, which is set to recent, so these will be very similar initially. But I can open this up and we can do outdoor photography. And you can see our keywords change to options that are related to outdoor photography. Now, of course, we can come down here and edit a set and save different presets if we wanted to. For the sake of timing, I'm not going to go any deeper into this, but perhaps I will in another video in the future. Underneath the keywording, we have the keyword list, and this can be useful. I think it's actually more useful than the keyword set is just a list of all your keywords. And so if we wanted to look through here, we could find some keywords that we'd like to add, such as wild. You just come here and click there, that keyword gets added. And down at the bottom, you can see that Wyoming, Yellowstone, and wildlife are already checked because we already typed them up above. Next, we have metadata, and this is one of the more important pieces of the right panel in the library module. If we scroll up here, by default, it should be set to something along the lines of EXIF. I like to set mine to EXIF and IPTC. The reason I like to set it to the IPTC file is because you get this title dialog box, and when I export my photos, I like to export by title and let my file name be this number or whatever it might be. It might be something like Woof Edit 3 or something along the lines of that. So having this title feature is really nice because I can just export, and when I export, I'll change the name to title, which will be Wolf. And it's a lot better than V1A5092, which is kind of undescriptive and unhelpful. This metadata tab will also tell you the dimensions of the photo, the exposure time. If you had a flash, it'll tell you if it went off or not. It'll tell you your exposure program. So I was in manual here, metering mode, pattern, ISO 800, and the list sort of goes on and on. Date and time. Even if you have a GPS, that'll be in here as well. It even tells me my altitude. So this is a pretty cool window within the library panel. To close it, I'll just click on that once more. And then lastly, we have comments, and comments are sort of like, it's like a social media. It's a way that you can comment on photos that are synced up with Lightroom Mobile. I don't use it at all. I never have and probably never will. So I'm going to go ahead and close that. Moving along, we have our toolbar down at the bottom, and it's really important to know the keyboard shortcut for this toolbar because you will probably accidentally hit it at some point, and that is the T key. That hides and shows the toolbar. You can also go to View and choose Hide Toolbar, or if it's missing, go to Show Toolbar and it'll pop right back up. By default, the Library and Develop modules are missing a lot of tools. And so what you want to do is navigate all the way to the right-hand corner, this little downward arrow. Go ahead and click on this and turn on Sorting. We're going to turn on Flagging. We'll turn on Rating. And we're going to turn on Color Label. And I'm actually going to take Navigate off because I don't really use it. As we already talked about, we have the grid view. Next, we have the loop view, which is sort of a larger view. It allows you to see one photo at a time. Next, we have our XY button, which allows you to compare 2 photos with one another. As you can see right here, I've got this photo selected as my select, and this one on the right-hand side is my candidate. If I want to change those, I can simply click within the film strip and I can change the photo. If I want to change the candidate, I can click here. and then I'll click on another photo down here, and I've changed the candidate as well. If we want to get back to the loop view, I'll just head over here and click this icon. And you can see even though the candidate photo was selected over here, the square was around here, when we went back to the loop view, the select photo is what we land on. If you'd like to compare more than two photos, you can head over to this next icon, which is the survey mode. So I can go ahead and hold Command on a Mac or Option on a PC. And if I click on one that's already selected, it gets taken away. If I click on one that isn't selected, it gets added. And we can choose really as many photos as we'd like here. And so this is a cool way to see a lot of photos side by side. If you'd like more screen real estate, we could always toggle these tabs off by clicking on them, or if I hit the tab key, that turns the left and right panels off together. If I hit the tab key once more, it comes back on. If I'd like to go back to the loop, I can click here, or E would be the shortcut, and you can see in the film strip, I still have some of these photos selected. If I'd like to deselect the photos, I can click the frame of any thumbnail in the film strip. So I'll click right here, not on the image, but on the frame, and now this photo becomes selected. And I'd like to talk about selections a little bit more. So I'm gonna hold Shift and click right here. So all of these photos are selected, but if you look closely, the frame of 58 is brighter than the rest of these. That means this photo is most selected. So if I were to sync metadata or edits across these photos, all of these photos would get synced with this photo that's most selected. These other photos are secondary selections. To change a secondary selection to the most selected, all I have to do is click on the actual photo. If I click on the frame, you can see my selection goes away and I only have one photo selected. Next we have the Find Faces icon. There are no people within this folder, so this is not going to work. But if I were to have people in this folder, this icon would help me find them. And so luckily I do happen to have a folder with some people in it, so I'm going to click on this one, and now I'm going to click the Find People button. And it can take some time to detect faces, so this might be a good thing to do, and maybe take the dog for a walk. And we can see our progress bar right here. And then you can always give these people a name. This is me, so I'm gonna go ahead and click here, and I'm gonna give myself a name, Mike. And now Lightroom knows that's Mike. If it finds my face again, it'll add it to this collection. And now you can see Lightroom's asking if these people down here are Mike, and these are not Mike. So I'm gonna hit the Not Mike button. Once the software is done detecting faces, the totals will be added, and if I wanted to see these photos, I can just double click on my name, and that's going to show me all the photos that have me in them. And when I come to the loop view, you can see I've got these boxes here. If I want to get out of this, I can simply go to the grid view and back to the loop view, and then they go away. Next, we have the spray can, and I'm going to come back to this because once we understand the rest of the toolbar, this will make a little more sense. Next, we have our A to Z, which will switch the order of the photos. So right now it's A to Z, and so that means our photos are in chronological order. If I switch this Z to A, the photos that were taken last are going to be at the top, and then the photos that were taken first are at the bottom. And I know that because this is set to sort capture time. We can always change this to added order, edit time, edit count, rating, pick flag, label, a bunch of different stuff. But most often, you're going to want this set to capture time, and then you can choose whether you want the newest photos on top or the bottom. You can also adjust this in View, Sort, and the same options are available here. Taking a quick look at my selections collection, you'll see I use color labels and ratings and flags quite a bit in my workflow. And the way you use these in your workflow will depend on what you're doing. My workflow makes sense for me, but it might not make sense to you. I will give you a brief description of it though, real quickly. So here we have our pick flags. That's how you can mark a photo saying, hey, I really like this photo. You also have a reject flag. So if I click on this moose and hit the X, that gives it a reject. That means when I hit the delete key, that photo is going to disappear. Now I didn't mean to do that, so I'm going to do Command Z or Edit Undo. And this can be a really easy way to mark many photos really quickly that you like or don't like. I can use the left and right arrows on my keyboard, go navigate to the next one. I can hit the X, or I can hit the P if I want it to be a pick flag. If I want it to be no flag, I can hit the U key, and that goes to no flagging at all. I did want a pick flag here, so I'm gonna hit the P, and I want this one to be no pick flag, so I'm gonna hit the U key, and we remove the flag. Next, we have our color labels. Purple is for proof. Blue is a TIFF, or something that's been edited in another piece of software. Green is HDR images. Yellow is panoramas. And then red is any photo that's designed to be blended with another photo. And that could be a group of the raw files before it's HDR, a group of images that are designed to be a panorama, a focus stack, anything. Next, we have our rotation buttons. And then next photo and previous photo. But the keyboard shortcuts I find are a little bit easier. And all the way on the right-hand side, we have our thumbnail size. So we can really increase the size of these thumbnails, or we can make them really tiny. Now that we've covered the toolbar, we can talk about the spray can. If I click on the spray paint can, you can see it says paint, and then just to the right of that, I have a little menu. And if I click on this menu, I get the options for keywords, labels, flag, rating, metadata, setting, rotation, and target collection. So these are ways to quickly adjust the attributes of an image. So for example, we could click on keywords, and then just to the right here, I can call this New Zealand. Oops. And then I can put a comma and add another keyword, coast. And when I click on the thumbnails, I'm adding the keywords to the thumbnails. If I want to backtrack, I can hold the Option or Alt key, and that will remove the keywords from that particular image. Now I can also just click and drag. I don't have to click each one individually. Moving along, we could do label. So you could see I could change the label just by painting on these thumbnails. Or we could go to flag. We could add a reject flag, a pick flag, or unflag. Now let's give them a rating. We'll give a rating of 4 stars. And there we go. And for metadata, I could add my copyright information. We can go down to settings and actually apply a preset. And I'll select Blue Dream. And I can simply just paint that effect into any photo that I want. Moving along, we got rotation. I can rotate to the right, rotate to the left, flip horizontal, or flip vertically. So I'll go ahead and choose rotate to the left. And you can see there we go. And lastly is target collection. And I didn't cover target collections earlier in the tutorial, so I'll go ahead and talk about it right now. So a target collection is essentially the quick collection. By default, this is the target collection. I know it's the target collection because of this little plus sign. And so if you remember, here's a little refresher. The quick collection is anytime you click on this little circle, it goes into the quick collection. And again, it's just a temporary place to store photos. Maybe photos you want to export, photos you want to print, photos you want to email to a friend. They could be in any folder within your Lightroom catalog, and this is just sort of a temporary place to put them. But you can also come down to the Collections tab and make any collection a target collection. So I'm just going to pick a random one here. This abstract collection only has 3 photos in it, so I'll choose that one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to control click on a Mac, right click on a PC, and choose Set as Target Collection. And now whenever, I'm going to put my paint can away for just a moment. Now whenever I click on these circles, you can see they've been added to abstract, and there's a little plus sign here letting me know that this is now the target collection. And that plus sign is no longer next to the quick collection because it's moved down here next to abstract. And so again, that's what this does. If I choose the painter and choose target collection, it's sort of the same thing. I typically wouldn't use the paint can for this because there's a kind of an easier way that they just select any photos that you want to add to the target collection and press the B key or just click on the circle. And that's pretty much it for the paint can. Underneath the toolbar is the filter bar, and you can see we got screen 1 and screen 2. So if you had 2 monitors, this is how you would toggle between the two. This next icon will also take you to the grid view. Next we have our go back and go forward arrows, and these are sort of like the forward and backward arrows on a browser. They allow you to navigate to the previous folder or collection that you were in. And right here we can see the folder that we're in, the number of photos that are in it, how many we have selected, and then the name of the image that we have selected. It'll also have the file extension attached to it. So this is a really good way to know if you're looking at a JPEG, a TIFF, a RAW file. I shoot on Canon, so you can see this is a CR2. I can also click on this little downward arrow next to the file name and choose a recent folder that I was in. That can be easier than trying to navigate through all of the folders and collections within Lightroom. On the right-hand side is our filter bar. So if I wanted to go to my prints collection, and then I'm just going to go ahead and show all photos that have a blue label. So I click there, and so there we go. The only photos that are going to be here, even though there's 257 photos, the only ones that are going to be here are going to have blue labels. So you can see 170 out of 257 photos within this prints collection have a blue label. I can expand this filter though. I can also add any photo with a purple or blue label, and you can see now I have blue and purple. If I want to turn one off, maybe I want to turn the blue off, now I have only purple thumbnails selected. We could add a star rating filter, so only 5-star purple photos show up here. And if I want to turn all of these off, I'm going to go over to custom filter, and I'm going to select filters off. There's 3 gray icons just to the right of the color filters. The first one is for the original photos. The next one is for virtual copies. A virtual copy doesn't actually exist on the hard drive. It's not a duplicate of the file. It's just a duplicate of the metadata that you can change, so you can have 2 different versions of the same photo, like one black and white photo and one color photo. And so if you wanted to look for just virtual copies, you could do it this way. And then next we have videos. So if you want to search for a video, it would be the last option here. Lastly, we have our library filter bar. If I go to view, I can either show or hide the filter bar right here. The keyboard shortcut is \. This filter bar is really useful because I can come in here and I can search for text. I can say, let's say I want to find a photo from Yosemite. I can type in Yosemite. And so what this is going to do is it's going to search within the current collection or folder that I have selected. So right now I have my prints collection selected, and so these are all the photos within the prints collection. But watch what happens when I come up to my 2023 parent folder and just choose text, search for Yosemite. You can see I have a lot more photos selected. I have 867 photos from Yosemite within my 2023 folder. Whereas when I was down on my prints, I only had 40 photos from Yosemite. It's really important to remember to turn this off if you're done using it. That way you can see all the photos within a particular folder or collection. By default, this is set to any searchable field, but I could change this to a file name, the title, the caption. So if I wanted to refine this even more, I wanted to find a photo that I know I titled Yosemite, I could click here and search Yosemite. And now you can see I only have 13 photos that have the title Yosemite in them. And if we go to our metadata, you can see the file I have selected is Receding Storm over Yosemite Valley, and that's why this photo showed up. This one's called First Rays on Yosemite. And again, to turn this off, I'm going to hit the little X, and that turns off all of my sorting. Next, we have attribute, and you can see the options here are the exact same options as down here. So there's really not much reason to come up here to access those. We have metadata, so we can sort by the type of camera used, the lens, the date. We can do label, or we can change these. If I come here and click label, you can see there's a lot of options. I can sort by the aperture. If I want to find a particular photo that was taken at f/16, I can do that. I can sort by file type. This is a really useful one. So I can see my DNGs, my Photoshop files, RAW and TIFF files here. If I had JPEGs, they would show up there as well. So lots of stuff you can do with the metadata. Or you can come over here where it says none and turn that off. I know we covered a lot in this video, but understanding where things are and the way things work is really important in building a productive workflow in Lightroom. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and of course if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell icon. That way you'll be notified the next time I release a new tutorial. There will be a develop module tutorial coming out very soon, so stay tuned for that. And lastly, don't forget to head over to naturemike.com for some in-field photography workshops, post-processing lessons, and some really great articles. I'll see you in the next video.